The transport ship settled onto the landing platform with a gentle hum. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her face against the small window and watched the crystalline towers of Velthara stretch into the pale blue sky. Each building seemed to grow from the ground like a frozen waterfall, catching and reflecting the light of 3 distant suns. After 6 months of travel through space, she had finally arrived at humanity's last chance for peace. Sarah gathered her files and stepped off the ship. The air tasted sweet and thin, making her dizzy for a moment. 2 Velthari guards waited for her, their tall forms wrapped in flowing robes that shimmered like oil on water. They had no faces that Sarah could see, only smooth surfaces where features should be. One of them spoke in perfect English through a small device attached to its chest. "Dr. Chen, welcome to Velthara. The High Council awaits you." Sarah nodded and followed them through corridors that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. She had studied everything humans knew about the Velthari, but seeing their world in person still amazed her. The walls moved like living things, changing color and pattern as they walked. Soft music filled the air, though she could not see where it came from. The council chamber was vast and circular. 12 Velthari sat on raised platforms around the room, their robes flowing down like water. At the far end, behind a wall of shimmering energy, sat a 13th figure. This one was smaller, more delicate, and wore robes of deep purple instead of the silver worn by the others. Sarah knew this was Princess Zixandra, though she had never seen the princess speak during any of the previous diplomatic meetings. The princess always watched from behind her energy barrier, silent and still. "Dr. Chen," spoke the largest of the council members, "you are the 5th human ambassador to visit our world. The previous 4 have failed to understand our ways. Why should we believe you will be different?" Sarah stepped forward, her heart racing. She had prepared for this question during the long journey. "Honored council members, I come not just as a diplomat, but as someone who wants to truly understand your people. Previous ambassadors focused only on trade agreements and military treaties. I want to learn about your culture, your values, your hopes." The council members turned to each other, their smooth faces offering no clues about their thoughts. Sarah noticed that the princess leaned forward slightly when she spoke about understanding their culture. It was a small movement, but it caught Sarah's attention. "You speak of understanding," said another council member, "but humans are known for their violence. Your species fights wars over resources, territory, even ideas. How can we trust beings who solve problems through destruction?" Sarah felt her cheeks grow warm. The accusations were not entirely wrong. Human history was full of conflicts and mistakes. But she also knew there was more to her species than violence. "Yes, we have fought wars," Sarah admitted, "but we have also created beautiful art, written moving poetry, and sacrificed ourselves to save strangers. We are capable of great love and compassion. I believe our species could learn much from each other." As she spoke, Sarah kept glancing at the princess. The energy barrier made it hard to see clearly, but she thought she saw the princess nod slightly at her words about love and compassion. The meeting continued for hours. The council members asked difficult questions about human intentions, human nature, and human history. Sarah answered as honestly as she could, even when the truth painted humanity in a poor light. She noticed that each time she spoke with genuine emotion, the princess seemed to pay closer attention. As the formal session began to wind down, Sarah realized that nothing had changed. The council members remained distant and suspicious. Her answers, no matter how honest, had failed to bridge the gap between their species. The previous ambassadors had been right to worry. This mission was going to fail just like all the others. But then Sarah looked at Princess Zixandra again. The princess was watching her intently now, leaning as far forward as the energy barrier would allow. For a brief moment, Sarah thought she saw something in the princess's posture that reminded her of curiosity, even hope. The largest council member began to speak the formal words of diplomatic rejection. "Dr. Chen, while we appreciate your efforts, we do not believe our species can find common ground. We must ask you to—" "Wait," Sarah interrupted, surprising herself with her boldness. The entire council fell silent. Even the soft background music seemed to pause. Sarah turned away from the council and faced the princess directly. She had never seen anyone address the princess during a formal meeting. It broke every rule of diplomatic protocol she had been taught. "Princess Zixandra," Sarah said, her voice clear and steady despite her racing heart, "I have been watching you during this meeting. I believe you understand more about humanity than your council realizes. I believe you have been waiting for someone to speak to you not as a political symbol, but as an individual who cares about the future of both our peoples." The energy barrier flickered slightly. The princess sat perfectly still for a long moment. Then slowly she raised one delicate hand and placed it against the barrier from her side, as if reaching towards Sarah. The council members began to speak in their own language, their voices rising in what sounded like alarm. But Sarah kept her eyes on the princess, who was now looking directly at her with what could only be described as intense interest. Sarah had broken every rule of diplomacy, but for the first time since arriving on Velthara, she felt like she had made real contact with someone. Sarah sat in her assigned quarters, surrounded by stacks of Veltari texts that glowed softly in the dim light. 3 days had passed since her bold address to Princess Zixandra, and the council had not called another meeting. She suspected they were debating whether to send her home immediately or give her one more chance. The translator device worked slowly with the ancient Velthari writings, but Sarah was patient. She had discovered something fascinating in the oldest texts. The early Velthari civilization had been built around something they called heart truth, while the idea that genuine emotion was more valuable than clever words or political strategy. Soft chime indicated someone was at her door. Sarah opened it to find a young Velthari servant carrying a tray of food. Unlike the council members, this one had delicate features visible beneath the shimmering hood of his robe. "Thank you," Sarah said, accepting the tray. The servant paused and looked at her with large dark eyes. "The princess wishes you to know," he said in careful English, "that the garden courtyard is beautiful at sunset. She walks there each evening alone." Before Sarah could respond, the servant bowed and left. Sarah stared at the closed door, her heart racing. Was this an invitation? After 3 days of silence, was the princess reaching out to her? That evening, Sarah made her way to the garden courtyard. The space was breathtaking, filled with plants that seemed to be made of living crystal, their leaves chiming softly in the gentle breeze. At the center stood a fountain that flowed upward instead of down, creating spiraling patterns in the air. Princess Zixandra was there, standing beside a tree with silver branches and golden leaves. She wore simpler robes than in the council chamber, deep blue fabric that moved like water around her tall, graceful form. When she saw Sarah, she turned and inclined her head slightly. "Dr. Chen," the princess said. Her voice was musical and warm, nothing like the cold tones of the council members. "I hoped you would come." Sarah approached carefully, unsure of the proper protocol. "Your Highness, thank you for the invitation." "This garden is incredible," the princess smiled, the first genuine expression Sarah had seen from any Velthari. "Please call me Zara. When I am alone, I prefer to leave titles behind. Then please call me Sarah." She gestured to the upward flowing fountain. "How does that work?" "It responds to emotion," Zara explained, moving closer to the fountain. "The stronger the feeling, the higher the water flows. My people created it long ago when we still believed that emotions were gifts to be celebrated, not weaknesses to be controlled." Sarah noticed sadness in Zara's voice. "What changed?" "Fear," Zara said simply. "When we first encountered other species, we learned that showing emotion could be seen as weakness. Our leaders decided that we must appear strong and unmovable. For 300 years, we have hidden our hearts behind barriers and formal words." They walked together along a path lined with singing flowers. Sarah watched Zara carefully and began to notice subtle things. The way the princess tilted her head when she was curious. How her hands moved gracefully when she spoke of things she cared about. How her eyes seemed to brighten when she looked at the beautiful plants. "You have been trying to communicate during the council meetings," Sarah said suddenly. "The way you leaned forward, the small gestures, you have been trying to tell us something." Zara stopped walking and looked at Sarah with surprise. "You noticed? No previous ambassador ever saw past the formal presentations. What have you been trying to say?" Zara was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "I have been trying to show interest, hope, even excitement when you speak of cooperation and understanding. But my council believes that any display of emotion weakens our negotiating position. They have forbidden me to speak directly during formal meetings." Sarah felt a surge of anger at the restrictions placed on this obviously intelligent woman. That must be very frustrating. "It has been lonely," Zara admitted. For 37 years, I have attended diplomatic meetings, hoping someone would see past the protocols and speak to me as an individual. You are the first who dared to address me directly. They reached a secluded area of the garden where crystalline wind chimes created gentle music. Sarah sat on a bench carved from what looked like pearl, and Zara joined her. In our ancient texts, Zara continued, there are stories of partnerships between species based on heart truth rather than political advantage. I have always dreamed of such connections, but our current leaders fear that showing genuine feeling will make us vulnerable. Sarah thought about her own species, and how humans often struggled with the same fear. We humans hide our emotions sometimes too, especially in formal situations. But our greatest achievements have come when we acted from the heart. Zara turned to face her fully. Tell me about those achievements. For the next hour, Sarah shared stories of human compassion, rescue workers who risked everything to save strangers, scientists who dedicated their lives to healing diseases, artists who created beauty to comfort others in dark times. As she spoke, she watched Zara's reactions. The princess nodded at certain points, tilted her head when confused, and even smiled at the more uplifting stories. Sarah began responding to these subtle signals. When Zara seemed confused, Sarah explained more carefully. When the princess smiled, Sarah smiled back. When Zara looked sad at stories of human suffering, Sarah spoke more gently about how humans learned from their mistakes. Gradually, they developed their own unspoken language. A raised eyebrow from Zara meant she wanted to know more. A slight nod from Sarah meant she understood. Small gestures that carried more meaning than the formal speeches in the council chamber. As the three suns began to set, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, Zara stood to leave. Will you walk with me again tomorrow? She asked. I would be honored, Sarah replied. As they parted, Sarah realized that she had learned more about Velthari culture in one evening with Zara than in all her formal studies. More importantly, she had found a genuine connection with someone who shared her hopes for a better future between their species. Tomorrow, she would continue building this bridge of understanding, one honest conversation at a time. Sarah woke to urgent knocking on her door. When she opened it, 2 council guards stood waiting, their silver robes rustling like metal leaves. Dr. Chen, the High Council demands your immediate presence, one said through his translation device. You will face the trial of sincerity. Sarah's blood turned cold. She had read about this ancient Velthari ceremony in the old texts. It was a psychic examination that laid bare a person's true thoughts and intentions. Most alien species found the experience so terrifying that they fled Velthara rather than submit to it. What prompted this decision? Sarah asked, quickly dressing in her formal diplomatic clothing. Your unauthorized contact with Princess Zixandra has raised concerns about your true motives, the guard replied. The council must know if you seek genuine peace or if you plan to use the princess for human advantage. As they walked through the crystal corridors toward the council chamber, Sarah's mind raced. She had spent the past week meeting with Zara in the gardens each evening. Their conversations had grown deeper and more personal with each passing day. Sarah had shared stories of her childhood, her dreams for humanity's future, even her fears about failing in this crucial mission. Zara had responded with equal openness, revealing her loneliness, her frustration with the rigid protocols of her society, and her secret hope that the 2 species might find common ground. The council chamber had been transformed. In the center of the room stood a tall crystal structure that pulsed with inner light. 12 council members sat in their elevated positions, but Sarah noticed that Princess Zara's barrier had been lowered. The princess sat among the council for the first time, her purple robes darker than usual, her face tense with worry. Dr. Chen, announced the chief council member, you will place your hands upon the truth crystal. Your thoughts, emotions, and intentions will be revealed to us. Any deception, any hidden agenda, any plan to harm our people will be exposed. Sarah approached the crystal slowly. She had read accounts of other species undergoing this trial. Most described it as an invasion of their most private thoughts, a violation that left them feeling exposed and helpless. Several ambassadors from other worlds had suffered permanent psychological damage. I am ready, Sarah said, though her voice trembled slightly. As her hands touched the crystal, Sarah felt a strange tingling sensation. The world around her began to fade, replaced by swirling colors and shapes that seemed to move with their own purpose. She felt her mind opening, her thoughts becoming visible to the watching council. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of the harsh intrusion she had expected, Sarah felt a gentle presence touching her consciousness. The sensation was warm, curious, almost protective. "Do not be afraid," a familiar voice whispered in her mind. "I will guide you through this." It was Zara. Somehow, the princess had connected to Sarah's mind during the trial. Sarah felt a surge of gratitude and trust. "The council will see your memories," Zara's mental voice continued. "Show them who you really are." Sarah relaxed and let her memories flow freely. She showed them her childhood on Earth. Growing up in a family that valued kindness and cooperation, she revealed her years of study, learning about different cultures and species because she believed understanding could prevent conflicts. She shared her excitement when chosen for this mission, and her determination to succeed not for personal glory, but because she genuinely wanted peace between humans and Velthari. As the memories flowed, Sarah felt Zara experiencing them alongside her. The princess saw human emotions directly for the first time, not just hearing about them, but actually feeling the warmth of family love, the satisfaction of helping others, the pain of seeing suffering, and the joy of discovery and learning. The trial deepened, reaching into Sarah's more recent memories. The council saw her first glimpse of Velthara, her awe at the beauty of the crystal cities. They witnessed her frustration during the early failed negotiations, but also her refusal to give up hope. Then came the memories of her time with Zara, Sarah's growing respect for the princess's intelligence and wisdom, her admiration for Zara's strength in maintaining hope despite years of isolation, her increasing affection for someone who shared her dreams of a better future. Through their mental connection, Sarah felt Zara's amazement at these emotions. The princess had never experienced such depth of feeling. Velthari emotions were typically more controlled, more restrained. But human emotions were like fire, bright, warm, sometimes overwhelming, but capable of lighting up the darkness and providing comfort to others. The trial reached its climax as it probed Sarah's deepest intentions. The crystal revealed her absolute commitment to peace, her willingness to sacrifice her career and even her life if it meant preventing a war between the species. It showed her growing love for Zara, not as a political tool or a means to an end, but as a remarkable individual who deserved happiness and respect. Most shocking to the council was Sarah's complete lack of hidden agendas. She truly wanted nothing more than understanding between their peoples. She had no secret plans, no ulterior motives, no intention to exploit Velthari resources or technology. Her heart held only hope, determination, and an increasingly deep affection for Zara. As the trial ended, Sarah collapsed to her knees, exhausted by the mental strain. The chamber fell silent as the council processed what they had witnessed. Through her connection with Zara, Sarah felt the princess's overwhelming emotion, joy at finally being understood, amazement at the depth of human feeling, and a growing realization that everything she had hoped for might actually be possible. "Never," whispered one council member, "have we encountered a mind so free of deception." Another added, "Her thoughts burn with sincerity like the three suns." Chief among them spoke slowly. "Dr. Chen, you have passed the trial of sincerity. But this changes everything we thought we knew about humanity." Sarah looked up at Zara, who was watching her with eyes bright with tears of joy and wonder. The princess had experienced human emotion firsthand and understood, perhaps better than Sarah herself, the true depth of feeling that connected them. 3 days after the trial of sincerity, Sarah stood before the High Council presenting a new framework for human Velthari cooperation. The council members listened with obvious interest, asking thoughtful questions instead of the suspicious challenges she had faced weeks earlier. Princess Zara sat among them now as an equal member, her insights helping bridge gaps between human and Velthari thinking. "This proposal shows promise," admitted the chief counselor. "Perhaps we have been too quick to judge your species based on incomplete information." Sarah felt hope rising in her chest. After nearly a month on Velthara, real progress was finally being made. She glanced at Zara, who smiled encouragingly. Suddenly, alarms began wailing throughout the crystal city. The council chamber's walls flashed red as emergency signals pulsed through the structure. A guard rushed in, his usual calm completely shattered. "The sacred grove has been destroyed," he announced breathlessly. "The heart trees are burning. The ancient shrine is in ruins. The council members rose from their seats in shock. The sacred grove was the most holy site on Velthara, where the first Velthari had planted trees that lived for thousands of years. Its destruction was unthinkable. "Show us the security recordings," ordered the chief counselor. A large crystal screen materialized in the air above them. The recording showed a figure in human-style clothing moving through the sacred grove in the early morning darkness. The person carried what looked like human incendiary devices, placing them at the base of several massive trees before disappearing into the shadows. Sarah's blood ran cold as she watched the footage. The figure's movements, their height, even their clothing looked remarkably similar to her own. "This is impossible," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "I was in my quarters all night. I would never destroy something so sacred to your people." But as the recording continued, Sarah saw herself, or someone who looked exactly like her, setting fires that quickly spread through the ancient grove. The image was clear and undeniable. "Seize the human," commanded the chief counselor, his earlier friendliness completely gone. "She has betrayed our trust and committed the highest crime against our people." Guards moved towards Sarah, but Princess Zara stepped between them. "Wait, something is wrong here. The human in that recording moves differently than Sarah. Look at how she walks, how she holds her shoulders." The chief counselor's face darkened with anger. "Princess, you have been deceived by human cunning. This is exactly why we should never have trusted them." "I demand the right to examine the evidence more closely," Zara said firmly. "As a member of this council, I have that authority." "You have been compromised by your feelings for this destroyer of sacred places," another counselor snapped. "Guards, arrest them both." What happened next shocked everyone in the chamber. Princess Zara raised her hand, and energy barriers sprang up around herself and Sarah. The guards' weapons bounced harmlessly off the shimmering shields. "I will not allow an innocent person to be executed based on false evidence," Zara declared. "There are others who oppose these peace talks. Perhaps they have taken action to ensure their failure." The chief counselor's voice turned cold and threatening. "Princess, you are committing treason by protecting this human terrorist. Lower your barriers immediately." "No," Zara replied calmly. "I have seen into Sarah's mind during the trial of sincerity. She is incapable of such destruction. Someone else is responsible for this attack." Sarah felt amazement at Zara's courage in defying her own people to protect her, but she also felt fear. They were now trapped in the council chamber, surrounded by angry Velthari who believed she was a terrorist. "There has to be a way to prove my innocence," Sarah said urgently. "Who else had access to my quarters? Who could have obtained my clothing or created a disguise?" Zara's eyes brightened with understanding. "The morning servant who brought your meals. He always stayed longer than necessary, asking questions about human customs. I thought he was simply curious." "More human lies," scoffed a counselor. "Lower the barriers or we will bring weapons that can penetrate them." Sarah's mind raced. She remembered the servant's unusual interest in her daily routines, his questions about when she slept and when she left her quarters. She also recalled seeing similar servants in areas where humans would not normally be allowed. "Zara, those servants can go anywhere in the palace without suspicion," Sarah said excitedly. "They could have accessed restricted areas, gathered information, even planted evidence. And some servants have access to the genetic replication technology used for ceremonial purposes," Zara added. "They could have created a physical duplicate for the security." Recordings. The energy barriers flickered as Zara's concentration wavered under the strain of maintaining them against increasingly powerful weapons being brought into the chamber. "We need to find proof before these barriers fail," Sarah said. Zara nodded grimly. "There is a service tunnel behind this chamber. If we can reach the central data core, we can access the complete security network and track the real movements of everyone in the palace last night." "That tunnel leads through restricted areas," Sarah pointed out. "Even if we escape this chamber, how do we get past the guards?" "Leave that to me," Zara said with determination. "I know secrets about this palace that even the council has forgotten." As weapons fire intensified against their shields, Zara suddenly expanded the barriers outward, forcing the guards back. In the confusion, she grabbed Sarah's hand and pulled her toward a hidden panel in the chamber wall. "Trust me," Zara whispered as the panel opened to reveal a narrow passageway. "We will prove your innocence, but first we must survive long enough to find the truth." Together, they disappeared into the darkness of the secret tunnel, leaving behind the angry shouts of the council and the sound of pursuing guards. Sarah realized that their investigation would not just clear her name, but might expose a conspiracy that threatened everything they had worked to achieve. Sarah and Zara moved through the narrow service tunnel, following crystalline conduits that glowed softly in the darkness. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of guards searching the palace. Ahead lay the central data core, where all security recordings were stored and processed. "The tunnel opens into the data chamber in 50 meters, Zara whispered, checking a small device on her wrist. "But there will be automated defenses." "What kind of defenses?" Sarah asked, trying to keep her breathing steady despite the fear and adrenaline coursing through her. "Light barriers that scan for authorized genetic signatures. Since you are human, the system will not recognize you as permitted." Sarah's heart sank. They had come so far only to be stopped by security systems. "Is there another way?" Zara paused and turned to face her in the dim tunnel light. "There is one possibility. If I register you as my chosen partner, the system will grant you access as a member of the royal family." "But that would mean," Sarah began, then stopped as she realized the implications. "It would mean declaring our bond before both our peoples," Zara finished quietly. "Are you prepared for such a commitment?" Sarah looked into Zara's eyes and saw not just determination but deep affection and hope. Over the past weeks they had shared their thoughts, dreams, and fears. They had faced danger together and discovered that their connection transcended political boundaries. "Yes," Sarah said simply, "I am ready." They reached the end of the tunnel and emerged into the vast data core chamber. Towers of crystal computers stretched toward the high ceiling, their surfaces alive with flowing information. At the center stood a control pedestal surrounded by scanning beams. As they approached, red warning lights began flashing. A mechanical voice echoed through the chamber in the Velthari language. "Unauthorized genetic signature detected. Security protocols activated." Zara stepped forward and placed her hand on the central scanner. "Princess Zixandra requesting emergency access with my chosen life partner." The system paused, then spoke again. "Please verify the genetic signature of your declared partner." Zara looked at Sarah encouragingly. "Place your hand next to mine." Sarah pressed her palm against the scanner. Energy flowed between their hands as the system analyzed both signatures together. Partnership bond registered. Access granted to both individuals. The warning lights changed to soft blue as the security barriers lowered. Sarah and Zara moved quickly to the main interface. "Show me all security recordings from last night," Zara commanded. "Include service areas, storage facilities, and transportation logs." Dozens of screens materialized around them, showing different areas of the palace and surrounding city. Zara's fingers danced across the control surface, sorting through hours of footage with practiced ease. "There!" Sarah pointed to one screen showing a figure moving through a storage area at the same time the Sacred Grove attack was occurring. "That looks like the servant who visited my quarters." Zara magnified the image and enhanced the clarity. The figure was clearly the young servant who had brought Sarah meals, but he was not alone. Several other figures moved with him, carrying equipment and what looked like detailed plans. "Cross-reference their identities," Zara ordered. The system quickly provided profiles. The servants were all members of a radical faction that opposed any cooperation with humans. Their leader was revealed to be a cousin of one of the council members who had been most hostile to Sarah's mission. They planned this from the beginning, Sarah realized. They knew that destroying the Sacred Grove would end any chance of peace between our species. "And they created a genetic duplicate to frame you for the crime," Zara added, pulling up files showing unauthorized use of replication equipment. "Look at this timing record." The duplicate was created just hours before the attack. As they gathered the evidence, footsteps echoed from the tunnel behind them. The guards had found their location. "Download everything to a portable crystal," Zara said urgently. "We need to present this evidence before they can silence us." Sarah helped transfer the files while Zara activated the chamber's communication system, broadcasting directly to the High Council chambers. "Honored council members," Zara's voice rang through speakers throughout the palace. "I am transmitting proof of Dr. Chen's innocence and evidence of a conspiracy against the peace negotiations." The data flowed across screens in every part of the palace. Council members, guards, and citizens all saw the truth simultaneously. The real attackers were exposed, their plans revealed, their deception made clear. Guards burst into the data chamber, but they lowered their weapons when they saw the evidence playing on the screens around them. Within an hour, Sarah and Zara stood before a reconvened High Council. The real conspirators had been arrested, and the truth of the Sacred Grove attack was known to everyone. "Dr. Chen," said the chief counselor, his voice heavy with regret, "we owe you a profound apology. Your integrity and Princess Zixandra's wisdom have saved us from a terrible injustice." Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding with more than just relief. This was the moment that would determine the future of both their peoples. "Honored council members, citizens of Velthara," Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's amplification system. "Over these past weeks, I have learned that true understanding comes not from political negotiations, but from honest connection between individuals." She turned to face Zara, who watched her with eyes bright with anticipation. "Princess Zixandra, you have shown me courage, wisdom, and kindness that transcends any boundary between our species. You have become my partner in more than just this mission." Sarah's voice grew stronger as she spoke from her heart. "I love you, not as a diplomat seeking advantage, but as one person who has found their perfect complement in another." The chamber fell completely silent. Such a declaration had never been made between species before, certainly not in such a public forum. Zara stepped forward, her purple robes flowing around her like water. A smile spread across her beautiful features, transforming her entire face with joy and relief. "At last," she said, her musical voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "At last someone has spoken to my heart instead of my crown." The princess reached out and took Sarah's hands in hers. "I have been waiting my entire life for someone brave enough to see me as I truly am, to connect with me through genuine feeling rather than political calculation." Around them, the council members and assembled citizens watched in amazement as the two women embraced. What they witnessed was more than romance. It was the birth of a new kind of alliance, built on emotional understanding rather than strategic necessity. In the days that followed, the human Velthari emotional accord became the foundation for the first truly successful interspecies partnership. Sarah and Zara's bond proved that love, backed by courage and honesty, could indeed bridge any gap between different worlds.